The demon approached with a broad smile, exuding an intense malevolence that made Makoto tremble, realizing this being was on a whole different level from any demon he'd faced before. He wondered if this was one of the humanoid demons. Sensing his fear, Kazane gently pushed him back, then confronted the demon, asking if he was Imagine. The demon confirmed with a smirk, introducing himself as Grom. Kazane muttered that the rumors of Imagine appearances must be true, and warned Makoto that if they tried to fight Grom, they would both be killed. She insisted that she would distract Grom while he escaped. Makoto protested, saying they had to find a way to escape together, but she told him it would be enough if he survived. Kazane activated her wind spirit's mantle and charged at Grom, thrusting her spear at him repeatedly with impressive speed. But Grom effortlessly dodged her strikes, taunting her by saying it looked as if she were moving in slow motion, which only fueled her frustration. Meanwhile, Makoto could tell that Kazane was fighting at her peak, yet Grom's movements and power were on a completely different level, leaving him frustrated by his inability to see any opening to assist. Grom eventually caught her spear, pulling her closer, and teasingly declared he had her now. He slashed at her with his sharp claws, but she quickly flew back, barely dodging the attack. Regaining her distance, she called upon her divine spirit, Wave, to use their secret technique. Wave responded with an acknowledgement, and Kazane raised her hands, activating Milestone. She unleashed green wind tornadoes directly at Grom. Makoto hastily transformed his shadow weapon into a shield to protect himself from the force of the attack as Kazane hovered in midair, catching her breath. When the dust settled, Grom emerged unscathed, amused, saying that for him, her attack felt like a gentle breeze. Seething with anger, Kazane gripped her spear tightly. Grom, noticing her fury, commented on her evident hatred for demons. She simply retorted that she intended to kill every last one of them. Smiling slyly, Grom asked if she truly intended to kill all demons, and hinted that perhaps she didn't know everything. Confused and irritated, Kazane demanded to know what he was talking about. With a wicked grin, Grom pointed at Makoto, revealing that he had formed a pact with a demon. Kazane landed, shaken, and rejected the idea, telling Grom it couldn't possibly be true. Grom maintained his taunting smile, confirming his words. Kazane shouted that there was no way Makoto would make a pact with a demon, and if it were somehow possible, he wouldn't keep it a secret. But her confidence faltered as Makoto remained silent, and she demanded he deny it. Frustrated, Makoto knew he couldn't hide the truth any longer. He took off his gloves, revealing his sacred stone, and commanded Rinoa to come out. Rinoa emerged from the stone, and Kazane stared in disbelief, stunned to see a demon appear from a sacred stone. Makoto hoped to explain Rinoa's unique situation, thinking that if Kazane could understand, perhaps things would be all right. He opened his mouth to speak, but Kazane raised her spear in rage, demanding to know why he would form a pact with a demon, insisting that it was wrong and utterly inexplicable. Kazane shouts at Makoto that she could no longer trust him, and reminding him that demons were their sworn enemies. Makoto urged her to wait and calm down so they could talk, but she refused to listen. Furious, she turned her rage toward Grom, hurling her spear at him and declaring that she would start by eliminating him. Grom easily grabbed her by the neck, squeezing until she coughed in pain. Just as he raised his fist to strike, Makoto's shadow chain shot forward, wrapping around Grom's arm and halting the attack. Makoto demanded that Grom stop, but Grom freed his fist with ease, laughing as he taunted Makoto for finally deciding to step in. Grom flung Kazane aside dismissively, muttering that he couldn't care less about her. Makoto caught her before she hit the ground, realizing she had fallen unconscious. Apologizing softly to her, he laid her down gently. Grom then turned his attention to Makoto and Rinoa, pointing at Rinoa and sneering as he addressed her as a fallen angel. Rinoa coldly replied that she'd never wanted to hear his voice again. Makoto, puzzled, asked if they knew each other. Rinoa explained that when she first fell from grace, the Majin had tried to claim her, but she'd escaped when the opportunity arose. Makoto nodded in understanding, realizing the danger she had narrowly avoided. The Majin, after all, were intelligent, malevolent demons. Grom continued, saying that even though Rinoa was once a divine spirit, to the Majin she was just another number. Rinoa retorted that she had no intention of joining demons and that they would always be her enemies, causing Grom to laugh. He asked if she didn't desire revenge against the divine spirits who had abandoned her. Furious, she told him she had no interest in revenge and ordered him to be silent. Grom, ignoring her protest, offered her the freedom to kill as many divine spirits, humans, and demons as she pleased if she joined them, claiming that a demon should live according to its nature. Rinoa tried to refute him, wanting to declare herself an angel, but she faltered, feeling a surge of pain and anguish instead. Tears filled her eyes. Makoto stepped forward, declaring to Grom that Rinoa was different from the rest. Confused, Grom asked what he meant by different. Makoto explained that if a demon was defined as a being who harmed others without reason, then Rinoa didn't fit that description. He described her as kind, pure-hearted, and his dependable partner, which left Rinoa stunned and deeply touched. Grom sneered, calling Makoto a pathetic weakling who was spouting sentimental nonsense. Disgusted, he mocked Makoto's sentimentality and camaraderie, vowing to crush it all. He challenged Makoto to entertain him, his malevolent gaze fixed on them both. Gripping his shadow blade, Makoto faced Grom with fierce determination. Fueled by Rinoa's anger and their shared resolve to stand against him, Grom stretched his body casually, a smug smile on his face, while Rinoa warned Makoto that defeating him was impossible. However, she pointed out that Grom's overconfidence and complacency could be exploited to create an opportunity for escape, which was their only realistic option. Grom leapt forward suddenly, dashing toward Makoto with astonishing speed. Startled, Makoto barely managed to raise his sword in defense, only to feel Grom's presence vanish and reappear behind him. Grom's powerful kick struck his stomach, sending him flying into the wall. Makoto coughed in pain as Grom leisurely approached him. Makoto quickly summoned his shadowbind to restrain Grom's arm and foot, then shifted his weapon into a gun to fire at him. But Grom effortlessly broke free of the chains and met the incoming shadow bullets with his bare hands, catching each one mid-air before casually tossing them to the ground. With a teasing smirk, Grom remarked that it would have been more fun if Makoto had thrown them back at him instead. Grom taunted him, asking if he was already out of tricks, fueling Makoto's frustration at being toyed with so thoroughly. Meanwhile, as the battle continued, Kazane stirred, regaining consciousness. Her vision focused on Makoto fighting Grom, his body battered and bleeding from severe injuries. Alarmed, she sat up in a panic, only to notice Rinoa standing behind Makoto, assisting him in his attacks. Her heart sank as she clutched Makoto's coat tightly, questioning how he could have made a pact with a demon. Overwhelmed, she felt like she could no longer trust anything. Grom delivered another brutal kick, this time to Makoto's side, then followed up with another to his stomach. He shouted at Makoto, calling him weak and declaring that his struggles were pointless. Despite the overwhelming pain, Makoto forced himself to sit up, then slowly stood, trembling but resolute. He admitted to Grom that he was weak and couldn't compete with him, but he refused to give up. His defiance stunned Kazane. Her mind drifted to a memory from years ago, about a week after her brother's death. Makoto had come to her room and gently told her that her mother was worried about her, mentioning that she hadn't eaten for 4 days. She had sadly confided in Makoto, saying that nothing seemed to matter anymore. Makoto had silently approached her, patting her back softly, and told her not to give up. He had reminded her that giving up would mean truly losing everything. He confessed that he had also felt despair when his parents were killed, but realized that survivors like them had a path ahead of them, one they could only find if they kept looking forward. He had urged her to live and never give up. Tears welled in Kazane's eyes as she recalled his words. Thanks to Makoto, she had been able to move forward and find strength again. Snapping back to the present, she watched Makoto struggle to block Grom's next attack with his sword, only to be overpowered and thrown aside again. Grom mocked him, saying that high spirits alone weren't enough. Yet, despite his trembling hands and bruised body, Makoto pushed himself to his feet once more, declaring with unwavering resolve that he wasn't giving up. Kazane tightened her grip on his coat, her heart heavy with emotion. She realized that Makoto had always been like this, straightforward, strong-hearted, and unrelenting. Even if he had made a pact with a demon, he was still Makoto, and nothing about his core had changed. Kazane shouted at Makoto, urging him not to give up. Her words made him look back, and she reassured him with a soft smile, expressing her belief in his ability to succeed and encouraging him to do his best. Encouraged by her support, Makoto responded with a smile. As Grom charged at him, warning him not to be distracted, Makoto managed to block the attack with his sword, surprising Grom. Holding his ground, Makoto reflected on how much Kazane had suffered and how she still placed her trust in him. This trust gave him renewed determination. He leaped into the air to dodge Grom's follow-up attack, vowing internally that he couldn't afford to fall here. He struck back, swinging his sword at Grom, who dodged the attack but noticed an increase in Makoto's speed. Makoto launched another strike, aiming for Grom's eyes while declaring his resolve to survive and return. Grom tilted his head to avoid the blow, but a scratch formed on his face and blood splattered onto the ground. Makoto quickly distanced himself, noticing Grom's brief moment of shock. Kazane, watching from afar, was amazed that Makoto had managed to wound the demon. Grom licked the blood from his face and expressed amusement at the injury before deciding that the fight had gone on long enough. He began to accumulate a surge of dark power, which he referred to as a parting gift for their afterlife. The oppressive magic caused Makoto to tremble, leaving him questioning the nature of such violent energy. Turning his attention to Rinoa, Grom addressed her and demanded her return to his side, implying that compliance might spare her allies. He also hinted at Makoto's imminent demise if she refused. Rinoa looked at Makoto, who reassured her with a calm expression. She responded to Grom, firmly rejecting his offer and emphasizing her refusal to submit to a demon alongside Makoto's. Grom, unfazed, declared their end and unleashed his doom of the underworld attack, a powerful wave of dark magic. The group braced for impact, feeling a sense of hopelessness as the attack approached. However, just before the attack reached them, a radiant yellow light appeared, forming a massive hole that absorbed the dark energy and caused it to vanish without a trace. The unexpected intervention stunned everyone, including Grom, who demanded an explanation for what had just occurred. Before Grom could act, a hand rested on his shoulder from behind. A calm but firm voice informed him that his actions wouldn't be allowed to extinguish the hope for a brighter future. When Grom turned to face the source, he was met by a confident individual who introduced himself as Amagi Yugo and suggested that Grom should prepare to face him next. That's all for today, guys. See you on the next upload.